What happens when you need to watch a high-value target forever, but your multi-million-dollar drone runs out of fuel after a single day? How do you maintain a permanent, unblinking eye in the sky without paying the staggering costs of launching an orbital satellite into space? For decades, military commanders faced this impossible problem. They had to choose between highly capable, heavily armed drones that eventually had to land and incredibly expensive space satellites that took years to build and launch. But what if there was a third option? What if an aircraft could fly into the upper edges of the atmosphere and simply stay there, silently watching for months at a time? Today, we are looking at a revolutionary leap in military technology. We will explore how a new, featherweight solar aircraft is rendering traditional heavy drones obsolete for long-term surveillance, completely changing the future of aerial warfare. To truly understand the groundbreaking solution this new technology offers, we must first analyze the legacy system that currently dominates modern battlefields. The MQ-9 Reaper is classified as a medium-altitude, long-endurance, unmanned aerial vehicle. This means it flies at middle altitudes and stays airborne for long periods. However, it is fundamentally a massive and heavy machine of war, featuring a 20 meters wingspan and a maximum takeoff weight of 4,760 kilograms. The Reaper is propelled through the sky by a powerful Honeywell TPE 331-10 turboprop engine, generating exactly 900 shaft horsepower. When commanders decide to deploy this system, the operational flow is heavy and complex. First, ground crews must prepare the drone at a massive forward operating base. This incredibly large physical footprint severely limits deployment flexibility and alerts the enemy to their presence. Second, the aircraft takes off, relying heavily on continuous and highly secure satellite communications to function. Third, it climbs to an operational altitude ceiling of 50,000 feet. Finally, it loiters over the target area for a maximum of 24 to 40 hours before its fuel tanks run dry. During counterinsurgency operations where friendly forces guarantee absolute air superiority, meaning no enemy aircraft or missiles can threaten it, the Reaper is an incredibly effective tool. Its immense 1,700 kilograms payload capacity allows it to carry heavy kinetic weapons across 7 external hardpoints. This lethal arsenal includes AGM-114 Hellfire missiles and Paveway-2 laser-guided bombs. This deep magazine depth makes it perfectly suited for tactical battlefield engagements. The drone also integrates heavy and power-intensive sensor suites, including synthetic aperture radar and precise laser designators for identifying targets. However, the global threat landscape has radically changed. Against modern integrated air defense systems, which are networks of enemy radars and surface-to-air missiles, the legacy Reaper simply fails. Its slow maximum speed of 480 kilometers per hour, extremely predictable flight profiles, and massive radar cross-section make it highly vulnerable to enemy fire. Furthermore, its absolute reliance on satellite links creates severe electronic warfare vulnerabilities, including signal jamming and targeted network spoofing. Beyond the physical vulnerabilities, there is the sheer financial drain. A single Reaper unit flyaway cost ranges from $16 million to over $30 million, depending on the specific sensor and mission systems configurations. Losing multiple units in modern contested environments creates a massive financial burden. In recent conflicts, the military absorbed $480 million in attrition costs for just 16 lost airframes. The military desperately needed a completely new operational paradigm to replace this costly and vulnerable cycle. They needed a system that trades heavy weapons for absolute, untouchable persistence. But how do you build an aircraft that never needs to refuel? Enter the Airbus Zephyr. This next-generation weapon is officially classified as a solar-powered, high-altitude platform station. It completely rewrites the foundational mechanics of aerial surveillance. While the legacy Reaper relies on heavy aviation fuel and massive combustion engines, the Zephyr uses the limitless power of the sun. It features a large 25-meter wingspan but weighs an astonishingly light 67 kilograms fully loaded. It is powered entirely by advanced amorphous silicon multi-junction solar cells and highly specialized lithium-ion batteries, boasting a 435 watt-hour per kilogram specific energy rating. The operational flow of the Zephyr entirely eliminates the need for massive and vulnerable air bases. Instead of requiring a concrete runway, deployment requires only a carefully coordinated 5-person ground crew. They perform a delicate hand launch directly into the wind. Once safely airborne, The aircraft climbs steadily to its operational altitude between 60,000 and 76,100 feet. This incredible vertical ascent places it squarely in the stratosphere. This extreme altitude provides its greatest tactical advantage. It operates high above conventional air defenses, commercial air traffic, and standard tropospheric weather systems that ground legacy drones. Unlike the Reaper, which must return to base after just 40 hours, the Zephyr is specifically designed for extreme, uninterrupted endurance. Its autonomous endurance design target aims for an incredible 200 to 300 days of continuous flight. It provides persistent pseudo-satellite intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. It also functions as an unblinking communications relay without the multi-million-dollar launch costs associated with traditional orbital satellites. The coverage is so vast that just one single Zephyr unit can effectively replace the terrestrial coverage of 250 ground-based cell phone towers. However, achieving these extreme capabilities demands severe physical compromises. The Zephyr absolutely cannot carry kinetic weapons or heavy radar arrays. Severe mass and structural constraints strictly limit its total payload capacity to a mere 5 to 8 kilograms. The flight physics are also entirely different from a traditional aircraft. It maintains an incredibly slow cruise speed of just 12 knots indicated airspeed. Furthermore, its extremely low never-exceed speed, which is the absolute maximum velocity before structural failure occurs, is 20 knots indicated airspeed, making it utterly incapable of performing any evasive maneuvers. The Zephyr is essentially an ultra-lightweight glider packed with batteries. Consequently, it is highly vulnerable to dynamic aeroelastic instability, commonly known as flutter, and basic atmospheric turbulence. Its operations are also heavily restricted by geography. The system cannot reliably operate at high latitudes during winter months, because there simply is not enough solar radiation available to recharge the battery banks. Additionally, that delicate hand launch makes the initial deployment sequence highly weather-dependent. Despite these strict physical limitations, the strategic payoff of holding a stationary position in the stratosphere for months at a time completely eclipses the surveillance capabilities of the legacy fleet. But how does this delicate solar-powered aircraft actually perform when faced with the brutal and unforgiving realities of real-world military testing? To ground this futuristic technology in the brutal reality of military operations, we must examine the specific flight data and structural evaluations. The difficult transition from a theoretical design concept into a practical surveillance application began with rigorous capability assessments. In 2018, an Airbus Zephyr formally established a global endurance record for its specific aviation class. The delicate aircraft sustained continuous stratospheric flight for exactly 25 days, 23 hours, and 57 minutes, operating high above the Yuma Proving Ground, located in Arizona. This monumental engineering achievement effectively proved that the core concept of a solar-powered stratospheric platform was fully physically viable under real-world conditions. However, the technology truly reached a critical operational threshold during an extensive United States Army evaluation conducted in August 2022. During this massive testing event, the Airbus Zephyr completely shattered its previous limitations by flying for an incredible 64 consecutive days continuously, operating above 60,000 feet. The uncrewed aircraft successfully accumulated over 1,500 flight hours and traveled a distance in excess of 30,000 nautical miles, demonstrating unprecedented autonomous station keeping and persistent observation capabilities. Unfortunately, this specific test also highlighted the severe physical vulnerabilities and aerodynamic constraints of the platform. After 64 continuous days of flawless operation, the aircraft experienced a sudden and catastrophic structural or aerodynamic failure. Flight telemetry showed that it descended rapidly at a terrifying rate of approximately 4,500 feet per minute, before finally crashing directly into the Arizona desert. The total loss of this prototype proved that while extreme altitude endurance is highly possible, completely mastering the turbulent aeroelastic realities of the upper atmosphere remains a monumental physics challenge. Despite the violent conclusion to the 2022 military evaluation, strategic development accelerated rapidly to solve these limitations. By 2025, the program achieved another historic flight milestone. A newly upgraded Zephyr unit successfully completed a staggering 67 continuous days and nights of uninterrupted stratospheric flight. This record-breaking operational mission included complex flight routes in Australian airspace and the successful live testing of critical connectivity payloads. Looking directly toward the future, the strategic impact and exact deployment timelines are now firmly locked into place. Defense and commercial organizations are actively transitioning the Zephyr from an experimental testing prototype into a fully operational global service. In March 2026, official agreements were signed to aggressively advance the foundational infrastructure required for widespread stratospheric operations. Based on current hard data, the exact future deployment timeline dictates that initial operational demonstration flights will successfully commence in 2027. Following these critical final capability demonstrations, full commercial entry into service is officially scheduled to launch from 2028 onwards. This methodical technological progression absolutely guarantees that permanent, untouchable aerial surveillance will soon shift from a theoretical military dream into a permanent and highly cost-effective battlefield reality. None of this revolutionary capability would exist without the extraordinary human element standing quietly behind the machine. The incredible transition from traditional heavy drones to ultra-lightweight solar platforms represents decades of relentless dedication. We must acknowledge the immense contribution, unwavering grit, and brilliant problem-solving skills of the engineering team behind the Airbus Zephyr. These dedicated professionals face down the brutal laws of physics, overcoming massive power constraints, extreme atmospheric temperatures, and complex aerodynamic instability. They refuse to accept the limitations of legacy military technology, choosing instead to engineer an entirely new paradigm that will completely redefine modern global security. Now, I want to hear directly from you. Please comment below and tell me your exact preference for which next-generation weapon or advanced military technology this channel should cover next. Your feedback completely drives the strategic direction of our future research and analysis. Finally, please remember to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Absolutely essential to help this channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you the most objective military technology breakdowns on the internet.